Okay, we're going to request Dharma, and you're going to want this. The ceremony is on this.
Gong Jin Da De Sen Ting Wei Zhi Fa Hui Ji Yi Qie Zhong Sen Qin Zhuan Miao Fa Wen Jiao Da Wo Men Wu He Lao Sen Tuo Si Li Ku De Le Su Zhen Wu Sen.
Will the Sangha
with great virtue, well of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo saranto suchedoye olahudi samyao sanputoshe.
Namo saranto suchedoye alahadi samyao sanputoshe.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Together, supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a million eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master, Dharma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture tonight. It's the 21st of October. I think it's the first day of Scorpio, if I'm not mistaken. Libra was yesterday, last week, and we are here to look into the Avatamsaka Sutra's 10 stages chapter, 10 levels, 10 grounds chapter. And before we do that, let's invoke some spiritual presence. The cover of the sutra here has the name that we're going to chant, and please join me. Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Hua Yin Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa Nam Da Fang Guang Fu Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa Nam Da Fang Guang Fu Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa Nam Da Fang Guang Fu Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa Nam Da Fang Guang Fu Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Hua Yan Ji Hua Yan Hai Hui Po Pu Sa. Please open your text to page 16 and 17. Interesting how, on the women's side, with one exception, people lined up in a vertical line when we're trying to get people to line up horizontally. There's something geometrically off about this. I want to sit behind the person in front of me. I don't want to sit up front. Interesting. Okay, page 16 and page 17. I want to mention that last week, according to our tech crew extraordinaire, we broke the 50 attendees on YouTube Live, Dharma Realm Live barrier. So pushing into new territory. Over 50 people watching online, and there were something like 25 present here in flesh and blood. So we've definitely gone digital. We've gone virtual. We've gone cyber dharma, the cyber sangha of people online. Interesting. Okay, now we touched on that first paragraph on page 16 and 17, but in order to get the flow, I'd like to redo that first paragraph that starts. On the Chinese, it starts with Yo Shan Nanzi. The English is moreover, good man. Switch the noun, moreover, good woman, equally valid, makes no difference. Moreover, good person. Moreover, good digital being hiding behind your monitor there. Okay, ready? Yo Shan Nanzi, Ru Guan Shi Fang, Wu Liang Guo Du, Wu Liang Zhong Sheng, Wu Liang Fa, Zhong Zhong Chi Bie, Xi Ying Ru Shi, Tong Da Qi Shi, Okay, over to the right. Here we go. Robert, let's do it together. Can we do it in unison? Moreover, good man, as you contemplate all the various differences in the limitlessly many countries of the 10 directions, there are limitlessly many sentient beings and limitlessly many phenomena. You should thoroughly comprehend the attributes as they really are. Okay, let's unpack that, put it in the context. The situation is our exemplar bodhisattva. We got a paradigm cultivator, a practitioner. Bodhisattva in training. Could be you, could be me, could be somebody far away long ago, could be somebody right this very second, who is working his or her way up the training regimen, the training methods of a bodhisattva, who has reached the 8th stage of the 10 stages, which is our chapter. So think of this as a training manual. It could be for, a non-militaristic Navy SEAL, or a Marine, or somebody preparing for the pentathlon or the heptathlon or the Ironman triathlon. Somebody who is stretching their body and mind and their soul, their spirit, their compassion, farther than they knew they could, farther than they knew was possible. This method is not random, and it's not for any, they're not training to become warriors. You could say spiritual warrior, but there's no warfare in it. There's competition in the sense of meeting challenges, but the challenges are all internal. This bodhisattva is in training to be the best human they can be. So the challenges are internal, the successes are internal. And when I say it's not random, it's because there's a pattern, there's a method. And that method is called Fa, I guess. Each method is a Fa, mun, a Dharma gateway, a gateway into the Dharma. And it's been walked by everybody who ever became a Buddha throughout the history, not of our world. Our world has one particular Buddha, a historical being, who lived in India 2,500 years ago. Rather, in the Mahayana, in our tradition, they talk about the Buddha Dharma as being Buddha Dharma of the 10 directions and the 3 periods of time. So throughout space and time, these teachings have existed. And it's helpful to think of them kind of like a cookie cutter. I mean, if anybody's ever baked cookies the way my grandmother did and my mother did, particularly around Christmas, you had a cookie cutter. Cookie cutter was crude metal, maybe aluminum, or if you got it from your mother, maybe it was made of steel or iron, but it had a shape. Think of a gingerbread man, right? A gingerbread man, or maybe a Christmas tree. That was a simple shape, triangle, 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 and it had a handle, and you rolled out the dough, and you made a bloop of dough with your rolling pin, and then you went bonk, and you put the cookie cutter over the dough, and out came a Christmas tree cookie, or a gingerbread man cookie, something like that, or a Christmas tree ornament cookie. And then you baked them, and the cookies were done. The cookie cutter didn't change. That shape was a constant, and you could stamp out limitless numbers of cookies in the shape of Christmas tree ornaments, or Christmas trees, or Santa Clauses, or gingerbread men, as many as you wanted. As long as you had dough, you could stamp them out. So the Buddha Dharma, the Fa, mun, the Dharma methods are exactly that same idea, which is to say it's a form that you put over your dough of your body, mind, and spirit. And when you fit it, it's not a good fit at the start. You're either too much in one way, so you reduce, or you're not enough in another way, and you cut back, and you fit the mold, and out comes what? Out comes a bodhisattva of the 8th stage. Out comes an arhat, first, second, and third fruition arhat. Out comes a Buddha when you apply that mold. And is that far-fetched? Is that like fanciful? It's not. The Japanese really got that notion, particularly Dogen, the teacher who came to China, studied Chan, went back and made the Soto school of Zen. What did he say? He said, Shikan Taza, only pay attention to your sitting. This form is the Buddha, right? And oh my, they're really, this is it, right? You just make that form. And when you walk, kinhin has to be done exactly in the form. Dogen's idea, to my mind, a little bit rigid, but it certainly resonated with the Japanese so much that they created the school around it, was that there is an external form that puts the mind in the shape it's supposed to be, cookie cutter. And boy, when you go into the zendo of Antaiji, all the monks and the nuns are sitting like cookie cutter Buddhas, just don't like that. So whether or not the external form matches, what really matters is that the mind matches. One way to look at it, another way to bring some evidence to that theory of Dharma methods, Dharma doors, that's our jargon translation of Faman. They say Faman, Wuliang, Shiyan. There are limitless numbers of Dharma methods. I'm going to learn them all, right? Another way to think about it is we have this signature teaching called the Eightfold Path, right? And what is that? That's called in Chinese the Ba Zheng Dao. And the Ba Zheng, Zheng is a Chinese word that means square, proper, in shape, correct, right? Zheng doesn't admit to why, if it's crooked, it's not zheng. And so there are 8 inner shapes to get right with the cookie cutter. They start out with right view, right? Which is, oh, sure, I've heard of that, right view. The Buddha talks about that a lot. And so what is that? That's shaping up your thoughts, your perspectives, your viewpoints, according to a mold, according to a prefab form that is correct. Not too much, not too little. So you put that on your thoughts and your perspectives, and you true them up. You zheng them. You stamp them into the form that, from the Buddha's point of view, from his wisdom point of view, says, this will make you a Buddha. This will make you a Bodhisattva. These thoughts will turn you into an Arhat. There you go. Shape your mind. Watch your thoughts and cut them back where there's not enough, too much. Bolster them, boost them when there's not enough. Okay, so here we are. This is the shape of an 8-stage bodhisattva, an 8th ground bodhisattva. That's what we've been looking at. And what about it? Well, we've said this for quite a few lectures now, because we've reached the turning point here where the person going through this training, the person applying those forms, those molds to his or her personality and actions, speech, thoughts, comes to a crossroads, gets to a crisis. There's a big crisis here that is known, right? It's not an accident. It's clear this is ahead, and there's a warning, there's a preparation for it. The Bodhisattva's in it right now. It's going through in his or her practice every day, the meditation that they do, the discipline that they absorb, the training they observe, right? It takes them to this crossroads. And it's enough of a scary experience that the Bodhisattvas have to be prepared and told, encouraged not to quit. Don't stop here. So when you hear that, you think, oh, well, there must be some possibility they would, that this would stop them. Whatever they're going to meet as they transform their body, mouth, and mind according to the form of the 8th stage, is a real stopper. It's a stopper. What is it that does it? Well, we've looked into it. It's an actual psychological change that goes on. And it has names, which we've tried to identify with various similes and metaphors and analogies, right? What happens? He goes from consciousness to wisdom. He goes from individual effort to autopilot. He goes from effort to effortlessness. That, that's the language. And what is the main tool that the Bodhisattva has to use? He has to use patience. And it even has a special name. It's called patience when dharmas no longer arise. And when you go through this, it's really easy to think you're crazy. It's very easy to think, this can't be right because this doesn't feel like anything I've ever experienced before. I think I'm going crazy. Right? Because the fabric of reality changes at this point. It's a major shift. And testimony to that is the fact that for the last 3 or 4 sessions, we've been hearing the Buddhas show up. Yes, the real Buddhas of time and space come to where the Bodhisattva is cultivating and say, hey, you know what? Keep going. And they use various analogies, similes, encouragements, exhortations, temptations. They don't threaten. Buddhas never threaten, but they tease. They appeal to the Bodhisattva's compassion and sense of pity and a little bit, not to say his greed, but they say, you know what's ahead if you keep going? You know what you're going to get? Here's what you're going to get. It's worth it. Keep going, right? So from this point of view, as we look at the contents of the sutra, it's really interesting because we've just had a series of 5 different arguments for why the Bodhisattva has to keep going. It's a cheerleading. It's a rah, 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 sis, boom, bah. Buddhahood, Buddhahood, rah, rah, rah. Don't stop, right? And they're cheering him on. Go, go, go. Okay? So tonight's first passage is the summary of that. What do they say? They say, moreover, good person, woman, man, look at all the world around you, all the countries in the east, the west, the north, the south, the northeast, southwest, northwest, northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast, above and below, all 10 directions, and all the sentient beings that live in all those worlds, and all the phenomena. What is that? That's 种种区别, 无量法种种区别. All the different things that go on there, in all their distinctions, and see them the way they really are, not the way your ideas paint them for you, not according to the stories you told yourself, but according to the nature of these dharmas the way they really are. In other words, you're going to be seeing through new eyes now. And, okay, so look at all the realities around you, the insentient world, phenomena, and the sentient world, all the beings. Take a look. Truly look at them. 佛子诸佛世尊于此菩萨如是等无量启智门令其能起无量无边慈悲痴别智慧 Disciples of the Buddha, the Buddha's world-honored ones, bestow limitlessly many methods for initiating wisdom such as these upon the Bodhisattva so that he or she can initiate limitless and boundlessly many wise actions. Okay, so the 2 paragraphs work together. They say, take a look at everything out there, look in all directions, survey everything, and understand that once you get through this door, once you pass through this transformation, the Buddhas are going to help you turn consciousness to wisdom. The Chinese for it is qi zhi men, initiating wisdom doors, gateways. Question, Sophie?
Have compassion for themselves.
That's actually a tool for initiating wisdom in all of us. All right.
Sorry.
Speak up. There you go. You
Should I
turn
start
on?
over? Hello.
Yeah, good.
So besides having patience as one of the tools to get through this transformation, is it okay for a bodhisattvas to have compassion for him or herself, or is that just stroking their self?
Okay. Yeah.
Let me
It's
talk.
okay for a bodhisattva to have compassion for himself, herself. They have to, but the self that they are having compassion for is not the small self. Right? The self is pretty much gone at this point. The individual self that it tells you the story of, oh, I am this person associated with this clan, this gender, this wealth, this possessions, right? That's exactly what they've been erasing all this time. So that story has been swapped pretty much at the sixth ground. What happened at the fifth ground was samadhi. They became really, really, really good meditators. And when you do that, the old stories come up for review, and you see through them. Because what the bodhisattva has been doing is finding out who he or she really is. When you sit there, it's hard. A lot of challenges to your patience back in the fifth stage. Anybody who's meditated for an hour has met those challenges, right? And in order to get through them, you have to let go of a lot of stuff. Oh, I can't take this. This is ridiculous. Why do my legs hurt? This must be wrong. I think I'm going to hurt myself. Gee, nobody else is going through this. I must be crazy. What am I doing? This is stupid, sitting here like a bump on a log. Who in the world would do something like this? I could be out there eating lunch or playing tennis or having fun, and here I am sitting here. What a stupid, I'm going to get up. You go, yes, dear, you know what? Let's meditate together. There'll be a lot of cookies and tennis when we're done. Sit still. But if you sit still, it's you might break your knees. That's expensive. I haven't paid your insurance premium. What if you? Shh, just meditate. So you come face to face with all your stories way, way before the eighth ground. And why would he not have compassion for himself or herself? Because the focus of this meditation is living beings. It's not doing it for himself. Focus is others. And at this point, the bodhisattva easily identifies the living beings in himself or that he is connected to. So, yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
So, qi zhi men, methods for kicking wisdom up, for pulling the ripcord on your wisdom. That's what the Buddhas are going to give him. Because, keep in mind, we've been saying occasionally that one of the hallmarks of this version of Buddhism, our Chinese Mahayana tradition, is that it focuses on relationships. It's relationship-based. It is not solitary, solo, lonely, isolated, sort of heroic, alone in the woods, in the mountains, in a cave somewhere. That won't carry you down this path, right? What makes the bodhisattva different immediately is, for example, the precepts. To practice this way, this being, this person, has had to make some decisions about their relationships with people based on an ethical code. They say, I am not going to kill anymore. I'm not going to establish that relationship. I'm going to establish my relationships with sentient beings based on ahimsa, harmlessness, from here on. That solidifies your meditation and opens all these wonderful doors. Furthermore, in relationship to living beings, I'm going to look at their possessions and not take them for my own. I'm not going to steal anymore. That's a relationship. I'm going to base my relationship on people's possessions based on ahimsa, harmlessness, by not taking them for myself, right? So there's a relationship. That's profound. And boy, when you do that, your meditation suddenly extends to the world around you. You have a whole different relationship to the material world when you yourself decide you're not going to steal. You take what comes. You take what is handed to you, right? So, relationships. You say, because I am now meditating in the Bodhisattva spirit, I am going to conduct myself ethically vis-a-vis emotional relationships, romantic relationships. I am not going to lust. I'm not going to rape. I'm not going to aggress sexually after I took the precepts. There's a relationship, right? Suddenly, you're aligned in a whole different way with the half of the population that is the other gender from you, or the same gender. But starting with your mother, moving towards your sisters, moving towards your partners, your spouse, your daughters, right? Your sons, your husband, your father. Suddenly, this whole world opens up of proper relationships based on what? Ahimsa. I'm not going to harm people because of my own urges, my own testosterone or whatever rises up. I'm going to deal with that. And then use that as my basis for relationships. Okay, one more big important one is relationships. When I go out into the world of relationships with not just humans, but all beings, I am going to base myself on ahimsa when I speak. I'm not going to lie. My speech will be harmless, right? I'm not going to deceive. Whoa, how different that is. Ahimsa in the world of communication. So, life-giving, not greedy, true to your relationships, true to your words, and honest. So the realm of life itself, the realm of material, the realm of interaction with people, and the realm of words. Ahimsa. Relationships. Radical. In other words, root, going to the root. How neat, right? So that's the beginning of the Bodhisattva path. The last one is alcohol or intoxicants. You make a promise that you're not going to harm your own wisdom by mixing intoxicating substances into your bloodstream. So, but those first four are key. From every step proceeding out from those, it's relationships. When he says, disciples of the Buddha's world honor ones, bestow limitless methods for, contemplate above. Contemplate the various differences in the many sentient beings. Why? Because you're going to have a relationship with them as someone who wants to help them get through their pain, their confusion. That's a relationship. All those vows, living beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. That's relationships. You don't save them by shunning them. Oh, this is a nasty living being. I want to stay far away from them. You know, like that's the spirit. That's not the Bodhisattva path. So when we hit that awareness not too long ago, it was like, oh yeah, that's really true, isn't it? So I started out in my meditative practice at age 19, in Japan thinking, I want to get enlightened fast, quick, Satori or bust, right? Why? Because that was cool. That was really neat. The descriptions in the books, Philip Kaplow's 3 Pillars of Zen, and D.T. Suzuki's The Practice of a Buddhist Monk, and Alan Watts' The Way of the Tao, and all talked about enlightenment, and I wanted it. You know, it was cool. And that was much better than almost anything I could think of. And it had nothing to do with anybody else. It was, I got it. I'm the winner. I scored. You know, there was no sense of it being connected to anybody. And so when I met Master Hua, and what did he start with? He said, well, you know, you really need to cultivate virtue. What's the first step? Cultivating virtue, repay your parents' kindness. It's like, what? What does that have to do with getting enlightened? Everything. And it's like, I had to expand my narrow little greedy heart that wanted enlightenment as fast as I could get it for me, and realize that was like trying to walk with tying your shoelaces together. Tie them together and then take a step. Me, I want enlightenment. So, nope, that's not the way the Buddha described it. That's just the way the marketplace sells you products, right? It has nothing to do with what the Buddha actually taught on the path of cultivation. So I had to let go of all of that. And when I did, as much as I could let go, immediately flooded in this rich, detailed world of connection with living beings, starting with myself. The true connections that were already there that I had just overlooked, right? For example, who among us is not a child of parents? If you are, please don't raise your hand, because that means you've stepped out of a spaceship or a test tube or some, you're an alien or a clone or something. We all came from parents, right? How many of us can think back to the next generation, grandparents? They're behind each of our parents, which we're standing right behind each one of us here. There's a mother and a father behind every single one of us. There are mothers and fathers behind both of them. So now we're out, tonk, and we got 4 plus 2 plus 1. So, and then you go, suddenly you can imagine the generations of human beings who we are now the exponent of. We're now the tip of that iceberg coming forward. But some of us in this room, I'm not one of them, have children, our own. So from us issue forth with a partner, children, and then potentially, right? So, wowee, there we go. That's real. And then let's go to teachers. How many of us have teachers that were really influential in our lives? Are some of us teachers of others? Do we have students? How many of us are friends of friends? Teammates of teammates? Orchestra members of orchestra members? Right? Siblings of siblings. There we go. How many of us are enemies of enemies? There's a relationship. Okay. You could say, and this gets a little tight, kind of pinches. How many of us established relationships with the flesh of the being that we consumed at the dinner table? Oops, right. True. That's a relationship. I embodied so-and-so's thigh and drumstick and wing and chop and leg of and rack of and, yeah, I did that until I found another way. So that's a relationship. We embody, we incorporate with those who we eat. And if it was me feeding somebody's body, I would remember. So anyway, relationships. When I saw that, it was like, gee, yeah. So what is the Bodhisattva trying to do? He or she is trying to wake up everybody as their path to awakening themselves, because they identify the connection, which is not warm and fuzzy only, it's genuine, it's real. It's an absolute earth, air, fire, and water and spiritual connection. Probably the spiritual part is more important, that certainly lasts longer than the bodies that come and go and come and go. Right? Now that's where it gets complex, because the spirit part has a lot of different names. And if I say, for example, in the Jewish version, Yod He Vav He, he who shall not be named, right? The unnameable God. And I say that's the same as the Buddha nature. Well, Rabbi so-and-so is going to say, excuse me, not the same. And a Muslim friend will say, the Buddha that you're talking about may be an avatar, it may be a prophet, but to say that it is the same as the unnameable Allah is called blasphemy. You and I have issues, right? And the Missouri Synod of the Lutheran Church would say, you may not co-opt our God for your inferior and filthy Buddha. I shouldn't put words in their mouth, but that's not too far away. Now, there are other Lutheran synods that disagree with the Missouri Synod. Anyway, just to say, religions don't want the Buddhists to come along and co-opt their source of their teachings. If somebody said, suppose the Baptists came along and said, well, your Buddha, is just, would in terms of Jesus Christ, he would be perhaps a friend, and we hope so. We'll take it. We'll take it. If we can have Jesus and Buddha be friends, that's progress along the path. So it's hard to go that way, but the Buddha's version of that says what? Says all living beings have the Buddha nature, all will become Buddhas. We don't know that because there's something in the way of that awareness, which is called false thinking and attachments. What does the Buddha say to justify that? Or what do we say after the Buddha justify that? To say that the differences in the bodies come together because of conditions. Male body this time. Was I a male last time? Don't know. Earth-store Bodhisattva, who we're celebrating today at the Berkeley Monastery, remembered his lifetimes as a woman and talked about them. That was in the female body that Earth-store Bodhisattva brought forth his resolve to cultivate. So, okay, the conditions come together to give us our bodies in this world, but what is the source of those conditions? And meditative teachers, male and female, throughout the centuries and centuries would say, sit still, Ming Xin Jian Xing, light up your mind, understand your nature, and you'll see that that is the ground from which springs every different, limitlessly many 区别 difference, right? The nature is the same. True for insects, true for animals, true for amphibians, reptiles, snakes, fish, birds, and all ancestors, they would say. One nature gives rise to the many differences. That's the Buddha's way of describing it. Okay, so we can't say no, we can't say yes, but that's the model. And I dig it. This makes sense to me. So, okay, that's what we share. The Bodhisattva says, right, I want to bring everybody back to that. I want you all to wake up so I can become a Buddha too. All right? So far, so good? Questions, comments? Sir?
Okay. the last sentence of the first paragraph that says, you should thoroughly comprehend the attributes. What are those attributes? I can't,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying,
Yeah.
I'm trying to translate from Chan Buddhism to all the other Buddhisms and so on, and I'm trying to find what is the significance
That's our
of attributes.
That's our current rendering of Dharma, small d.
Ah,
Phenomena. Swap out attribute
Okay.
for phenomena. Things would work, right? So yeah,
okay.
that's attributes might become something else later. Look at all those dharmas. And it was defined by saying worlds, beings, and all the differences in them. So what that means, there's actually a pattern here. When we do our refuge ceremony, we do taking refuge with the 3 jewels, and it's the way that you formally affiliate with the Buddhist institution. You become a Buddhist disciple if you take refuge. That's the phrase. In that process of transmitting the 3 refuges, this is our language we use, right? There's a moment where the person doing the ceremony says, we're now going to receive the substance of the refuges invisibly. How is it done? You all, people kneeling there who want to become Buddhists, you all contemplate. What do you contemplate? It says, first you're going to contemplate the sentient and insentient worlds. And specifies. It says, what is the insentient, what is the sentient world? It goes just like I ran you through. Start with your parents, start with your friends, start with ancestors, start with your children, proceed, all those beings in all directions. Bring them into your heart. Okay, first half. Second half, contemplate all the insentient, doesn't say beings, all the insentient phenomena, attributes. Houses, vehicles, clothing, smartphones, right? And the world around you, the mountains, the rivers, etc. And bring them into your heart. Okay? So, sentient and insentient worlds. It says, and then, with those things in mind, bring forth thoughts of kindness and protection towards them. And then make these contemplations. I will resolutely end all evil doing that I might do. I will resolutely accomplish every good, even little good deeds that I can do. And I'm going to rescue beings from suffering as I meet the opportunity, right? So that's what you say when you're doing the precepts, the refuges. You give people the sentient and insentient worlds, put them in the heart, and then direct their attitudes. Kindness, protection, and no evil, all good, and save them when they can. So it's a formula. It's mirrored right here. Notice, that's exactly what the Buddhas are saying to this bodhisattva. Contemplate worlds, contemplate living beings, contemplate all their different attributes, all the different things. And then it says, then you need wisdom. And the Buddhas are going to give you, they say, all of these qi zhi men, all these methods of getting wisdom. What's the wisdom? It's just how to solve their problems. So when I saw this, I thought, yeah, that's consistent with when you become a Buddhist in a formal way. That's what we ask. They say when you can do those contemplations, the refuge substance comes to you, and you're different. You're now a Buddhist. So, okay, yeah. All right. Next paragraph. More questions, comments. Okay, next paragraph here. 佛子若诸佛不于此菩萨起智门者，彼时即入究竟涅槃，舍弃舍一切利众生也. Disciples of the Buddha, if the Buddhas did not bestow the methods for initiating wisdom upon the Bodhisattva, he or she would realize ultimate nirvana right there. He would abandon his work of helping living beings. Okay, I pointed that out last week as the turning key. That's the hinge on which this strange behavior by the Buddhas suddenly falls into line. Why do, the Buddhas, that's this part of the text, we get to hear what Buddhas really say. Buddhas really show up. They care that this bodhisattva succeeds and continues, because he's at the 8th stage. There's a 9th stage, there's a 10th stage, there's 2 more steps before Buddhahood. They want this bodhisattva to continue and to succeed, so they show up. Now, what do they look like? What do their voices sound like? What are they wearing? Doesn't tell us. But they're there, and their hearts are clear, because we get their words. They say, you need to keep going, because why? One of the roads from this crossroads leads to a nirvana, which is not the Buddha's nirvana, and you stop, and we lose you. There's one fewer Buddha if you take that fork in the road. So don't do that. Oh. Now I see. Right? Now, behind this, you have to understand that there are multiple nirvanas. There's not one ultimate nirvana that when you either get it or you don't get it. It's not that way. Nirvana, from the Mahayana's point of view, is a state of samadhi. It's a fusion of your body, your mind, your spirit that is extremely wonderful. You never felt so good in your life. And it's a relief from all the pressure of having your consciousness turn to wisdom. Because it's the mother of all crises. Because reality itself doesn't make sense the way it used to. So the Buddhas are saying, right, keep going, keep going, keep going, because there's something ahead of you that functions like a heartbeat. Boom, 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 boom. Don't stop. You're not there yet. And once it functions, your nature will have transformed itself completely into the Buddhahood that is yours, but not yet realized. Keep going. If you abandon your work of helping living beings, we've got another arhat, which is good, fine. Your suffering's over, but you're not able to help the way you could if you keep going. All right? That's the motive. There it is right there, straight up. Okay? Good? Yeah? Interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's human. That's one of the things about this text is it's not philosophy. This is not a theory about the cosmos or something incomprehensible. The Buddhas are clear. They want another Buddha out of the sky who's almost there, out of this person, this woman, almost there. But you could stop if you don't get this exhortation, tease, promise, play on the sympathy, all the different things the Buddhas do to motivate the Bodhisattva to keep going, not stop. Right? Cool. Okay, continue. This is actually where we stopped last week. Okay? We're on, if you count from the top on page 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're on line 7. We're going to go all the way down to He Yi Gu. Here we go. 佛子若诸佛不欲此 I'm sorry, my mistake. 7. 以诸佛于如是等无量无边启智门故，于一念请所生智业，从初发心乃至七地所修诸行，百分不计一，乃至百千亿，哪有他分，亦不计一。如是阿僧祇分、歌罗分、算数分、毗论分、优婆尼沙陀分，亦不计一和一故。Because the Buddhas give to the Bodhisattva boundlessly many methods for initiating wisdom such as these, the deeds of wisdom that now arise in the interval of a single thought are many. That through should be, that's a typo, scratch the through. If we were to compare them with all the practices that he cultivated from his initial Bodhi resolve to the time he reached the seventh ground, all those practices would amount to only 1 part in 100, and so on, through amounting to 1 part in 100,000 kotis of nayutas, going on in that way to amounting to 1 part in an asamkhya, in a kala, 1 part in any quantity that can be reckoned, that can be expressed by analogy, or 1 part in a quantity as small as an Upanishad. And why is that? Okay. We can sum up that whole paragraph by saying, once the Buddhas bestow on the Bodhisattva these wisdom skills, everything is different. And it's a lot different. This whole paragraph is simply a comparison. Before, a little. After, a lot. Okay? Notice there's a pattern here. These are counters. These are numbers. We've just been given a bunch of numbers. It says, compare the deeds of wisdom he can do now with what he could do before he agreed to take the right road, listened to the Buddhas, took their advice. Let's compare them now. So, how does it go? First is an analogy. You take all the deeds of wisdom the Bodhisattva did in all the time it took him to cultivate from the first Bodhi resolve to the seventh ground. How many is that? A lot. It's a long time, lots of changes, lots of understandings, lots of gongfu learned, lots of bad habits dropped, right? Consciousness gradually, all that from Bodhi resolve, which is first step to the seventh ground. Take that amount and compare it to a single thought after the Bodhisattva goes down the right road. Okay, the rest is numbers. Compared the two of them, 1 part in 100. So 0.01% would be all that stuff from Bodhi resolve to seventh ground. 99% would be after. Okay, 100, and then you go, okay, 1,000, 10,000, million, 10 million, etc., amounting to 1 part in 100,000 kotis of nayutas. Those are numbers that have names in Sanskrit, like 100,000, million, billion, trillion, like that. Going on in that way, this is Niger. When you see Niger, you know it's referring to, we're not going to tell you all of it because it's boring to repeat it. It's etc., or and so forth, up to and including. So there's a whole bunch left out. There's 3 dots in there. The ellipse, okay? So, what else? Asamkhya, kala, any quantity you can reckon, like your calculator goes, breaks, that can be expressed by analogy. There's no it's like that you can make because the numbers of stars and galaxies don't cover it. Or even a quantity as small as an Upanishad. An Upanishad is the smallest possible particle. So physics hasn't developed this particle yet. It's a quark, it's a string theory, it's an erg, it's a boson, So the sutra is neat because it's got an entire chapter in it devoted to these numbers. And an Upanishad is the smallest. So in other words, what this paragraph is trying to tell us is, once the Bodhisattva accepts what the Buddhas want to give him, his wisdom is close to a Buddha's. Not quite there yet, because 9th and 10th even more, but he's now a grown-up. The Chinese have a great phrase, 好立春鸡. It's like a white crane standing in a flock of chickens. You ever see a white crane? We've got them at CTDB. The other day, I was standing in the office waiting for somebody to show up and looking across the parking lot. Here was this Massive white crane. Have you seen the white crane, Alan, up there? Gray color, yeah. Big, really big. I mean, look you right in the eye, bird, and most of it is leg. It's like, whoo, and there it is, pacing around, long yellow beak, right there in the parking lot, kind of looking very calm, like he belongs there. And sure enough, they nest in the back. They nest in the tall trees back by the water tower. And the Chinese always say where the white cranes show up is an auspicious place. They don't rest anywhere that's, anxious or afflicted or upset. So there he was. And chickens, even the best of chickens, don't even come to the knees of the crane. So the how, li, how, what tone? Bai he, fourth tone, right? He, si sheng. Hao li chunji, a white crane standing among the chickens. He li chunji, 不是好 好 鹤立春鸡 怎么说 Oh, I got it really wrong. 师父 would scold me. 鹤立鸡群 Okay, thanks. I always get my proverbs wrong. You guys got to watch me. Because Shifu would get it right, he would say. If you're going to quote it and show off your erudition wrong, that's worse than not doing it at all. People know you really are a phony. Okay, 鹤立鸡群 鹤立春鸡没有了 不是这么一说 Okay. Dang. Okay, so I say it in English. It's like a crane standing in a flock of chickens. You go, oh, the crane is way up here and the chickens are way down there. Okay, so that's the analogy for a lot. By comparison, Bodhisattva is in another realm now because he accepted the Buddha's qi zhimen, these methods for initiating wisdom. He still has to initiate them. So in other words, the Bodhisattva has been given the whammy by the Buddhas. They express some mojo, and he's different. Yeah, that's part of this notion, that there is a certain quality. And, who does that? Was there a time when Dumbledore gave Harry, I guess so, before Dumbledore, if you haven't read it, died. Dumbledore dies? I didn't read the last one. Okay, so Dumbledore gives Harry Potter some stuff, right? And he's different. And it's one of the things that wizards do in great fiction. And it certainly happens here in the sutras, too. So Gandalf the Grey becomes Gandalf the White after he falls into the mines of Moria, right? And he comes back and he's transformed. And actually, it's in the very, very first when he shows up in Bag's End. He shows up in Frodo's house. Remember at the very beginning, the first book? And he initiates Frodo on his quest. So that's what the Bodhisattvas, how they get through this. And notice that the sutra doesn't say, and this Bodhisattva accepted and therefore crossed over onto the right path. It leaves that to us because why? This is a training manual. It's a template for us to project ourselves into the Bodhisattva's model. It gives us the cookie cutter. Whether or not we imagine ourselves taking the steps the Bodhisattva takes, it's up to us. But here it is. So at this point, it's assumed he did it. It's a success. Okay? Because what happens next is has to proceed from the Bodhisattva making the changes, sticking it out, going through the patience when dharmas no longer arise. And at this point, what has happened? The Bodhisattva becomes what's called irreversible. This is the stage called Avavartika, Butoidran. No further retreat. Because there's nothing left behind to go back to at this point. Interesting. So this is the stage of irreversibility. And Shifu has said, Master Shenhua would say, that on the Bodhisattva path there are two moments that are the most crucial, the real turning points. The first one is Chu Fa Putishin, that moment when you realize you can become a Buddha, that is your potential. Your share of this is to realize your potential for wisdom. That no matter the body you're wearing at the moment, no matter your stories that you tell yourself, Buddhahood is your share. That's the Bodhi resolve. And you recognize the second half of the Bodhi resolve, that the way to realize that potential is by, quote, taking living beings across. Du zhongshang, which means establishing those relationships with you as the giver. That's the second half. Shang cheng fo dao, xia hua zhongsheng. Ultimately, you can become a Buddha, and immediately you take living beings across. That's how it happens. Okay, that's the first moment. Second moment, most important, is this one, irreversibility. No further retreat, because you've actually changed. Your reality has now added that octave, right? We always do this thing if there's an instrument close by. Before, you were always this. That was your note. Now you are that too. You can still do this just fine, but you do this too. Right? Before you were only, now you're also. That's accessible to you because you've uncovered it, you've learned it. You can move in the realm of octaves now. You always had it, but it wasn't available to you. Okay. (17) bottom. 佛子是菩萨先以一身起横起行，今住此地，得无量身、无量音声、无量智慧、无量寿生、无量净国，教化无量众生，供养无量诸佛，入无量法门，具无量神通，有无量众会道场差别，住无量身与意业，其一切菩萨行，以不动法故。All right. Here we go. Disciples of the Buddha, before, the Bodhisattva used his only body to cultivate his practices. But now, as he stays upon this ground, he gets limitlessly many bodies, limitlessly many voices, limitlessly many wisdoms, limitlessly many births, and limitlessly many pure lands. In those lands, he teaches limitlessly many sentient beings, makes offerings to limitlessly many Buddhas, enters limitlessly many Dharma doors, becomes replete with limitlessly many psychic powers, has limitlessly many different assemblies in Bodhimandas. Typo there, differences is different. Abides in limitlessly many deeds of body, speech, and mind, and amasses all the practices of a Bodhisattva. All these accomplishments happen because of this unmoving Dharma. Okay? So, there's a moment, I think, in a parent's life when would it be? Maybe first graduation, maybe first job, maybe marriage or something. But the parent looks at the child and realizes that the child is functioning independently. And the parent at that point, I'm not a dad, so I don't know, but I can imagine at that point, you kind of sigh, because on one hand, you've launched this independent being out there. On the other hand, they don't need you in the old way. You know, it's kind of bittersweet. But there you go. The child is out there making decisions on their own. You know, some to the better, some for the worse. But they're independent. They're closed. Their unit is now autonomous, right? The Bodhisattva has launched, the Buddhas have launched this Bodhisattva in the same way. Now, this Bodhisattva functions in a way that can send out, the keynote, as you heard, is Wu Liang, limitless. No measure. Numbers of what? No measures of bodies, voices, wisdoms, births, pure lands, teaching beings, making offerings to Buddhas, entering Dharma doors, having psychic powers, appearing in assemblies, in monasteries, cultivating places, living in deeds of body, speech, and mind, and amassing the practices of a bodhisattva. There are 10 of those. That's an Avatamsaka thing, as you give 10. All of them, Wu Liang, limitlessly many. Those are all independent functioning units that before were not complete. They were half-baked, half-made. Now they're out there. You're smiling at half-baked, right? Half-baked. Now they're fully baked. They're done, out of the oven. Cookies the gingerbread men are out there working and doing that work. Before, they were, they could have been ruined, spoiled, but they weren't. They came out of the oven and they're functioning the way bodhisattvas function. How cool is that? Okay, very neat. All right, to be continued. Think about that. Wanted to talk about Restored Bodhisattva a little bit. We're going through 2 days of Restored Bodhisattva session and reciting the sutra of Restored Bodhisattva. You all got a songbook there? 28. I've learned that it should not be called the Ballad of Restore because it's not really a ballad. This is not a story of Restore. It's a praise of Restored Bodhisattva. But, page 28, 29. This is a sing-along. Those of you who know, please join. And Restored Bodhisattva is the one here. Because it's dark out, we don't get the benefit of the sunlight coming through. But as we mentioned today, at lunch, we were talking about Restore. This is a bodhisattva, same. He's one of our role models in our tradition here. And he is the most altruistic of beings. He's selfless and lives in a world where few of us would dare venture, right? Earth Store Bodhisattva, Earth Treasury Bodhisattva, Kshitigarbha, Dizampusa. In Japanese, Jizo Bosatsu. Lives in the hells, made a vow to stay there until they're empty. That's pretty selfless. There's no superhero in the whole Marvel Comics universe that compares to Earth Store, because they get tired. Earth Store Bodhisattva goes where the spark is gone, hope is over. That's hard to stay motivated in a place like that. Going to tell a story in pictures after of a situation that called on heroism and how it was met by people in our community. Well, that's after. Let's do the song. Here we go. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, King of great vow. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, King of great vow. To end her mother's misery was her quest. To end her mother's misery was her quest. Her vow she professed, a filial child so blessed. In her mother's misery was her quest. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, King of great vows. That's your part. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, King of great vows. He makes his home deep in the hills. He makes his home deep in the hills. Well, it's deep in the hills that this Bodhisattva dwells. He makes his home deep in the hills. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, King of great vows. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, King of great vows. He shakes his staff and makes the suffering end. He shakes his staff and makes the suffering end. And then living beings' karma starts the whole thing up again after he shakes his staff and the suffering ends. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, King of great vows. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, King of great vows. Until the hells are empty, he won't rest. Until the hells are empty, he won't rest. Saving those who've transgressed is the thing that he does best. Until the hells are empty, he won't rest. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, King of great vows. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva, King of great vows. great vow. The fires of the hells won't make him move. The fires of the hells won't make her move. So firm are her vows, she'll still there till we improve. The fires of the hells won't make her move. Just change that pronoun, works. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva King of great vows. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva King of great vows. One more verse. It's best to practice patience when you're stressed. It's best to practice patience when you're stressed. King Yama's unimpressed with your screams of protest. It's best to practice patience when you're stressed. Okay, last time, here we go. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva King of great vows. I return, I rely on the Bodhisattva King of great vows. That was 12 years ago. We've been singing that song for 12 years, so that's good. All right, Earth-Store Bodhisattva, while a woman made that Bodhi resolve. And we love the sutra because it tells those stories. There are 3 stories of Earth-Store Bodhisattva's circumstances when she decided to go for it, saw her potential, let everything else go in favor of that. And I wanted to also mention that Master Shenhua's centennial is 2018, 100 years of our teacher's life. We're right now talking about how to celebrate that. And there are things in the works that will invite people to share with us their experience of this teacher. And one of the things that has come up is we've been talking about Master Hua's achievements in the West, his 30 years from 1962 when he came to America. And the 4, we're calling them the 4 legacies, the 4 accomplishments, 4 great missions of Master Hua. One is creating the Sangha, and what that means is giving us, by example, what it would mean to become a Buddhist, a bhikshu, a bhikshuni, or a layperson. How do you behave as a Buddhist? What does a Buddhist think like? What is that cookie cutter like? He gave that to us. Further, he established 26 monasteries around the world where we can go to practice that without any glass ceiling, without any limits to your accomplishment. Depends on your vigor and your resolve. So that's something. How to cultivate the way as a monastic, how to cultivate the way as a layperson. 2, he gave us our, what in the Christian world is called your ministry, the way we teach, the way we give back, our work, which is education. But that education, it's incorrect and partial to say education means classroom and textbook only. That you have to sit down in front of a book to do what Master Hua gave us to do. He practiced lifelong learning, inside and outside the classroom. There's so much to learn. He said, "Huo dao lao, xue dao lao," that as long as you're, I'm translating that as however long we live, we learn every day of our lives. However long we live, there's more to learn every day of our lives. His intellectual curiosity showed up in every aspect of his life. To watch him find principles in everything was inspiring. He would go, oh, this is a case of, he would say, and then give you the principle that this attribute appeared, this phenomenon appeared, right? So, he said, pay attention to nature. Pay attention to each other, your words, your actions. Find wisdom's principle underlying words and deeds. That's what he means when you say education. That was his second mission. His third mission was he wanted us to share the Buddha's voice. He spent 90 minutes of every day, 8 times a week, on Thursdays, which would have been the 9th lecture, he let the students lecture, but he came down to listen. That's how devoted he was. He took a day off, but didn't stop hearing the Buddha's voice. He explained sutras and encouraged us to translate so that the Buddha could speak English. The Buddha could speak Spanish. The Buddha could speak Polish, Vietnamese, right? So he wanted the Buddha's voice to be heard in the culture of the West so that the principles of the sutras come alive in the world. That was what he was about. And fourth, and this is significant, I think, his fourth mission, his legacy, is in everything we do, he wanted us to engage Western culture with our understanding of the Dharma and to bridge the East and the West. When we say engage Western culture to bridge East and West, there's a bunch of ways where he showed that. One way was interfaith. Interfaith means, oh, here come the Mormons, let's talk to the Mormons. We're Buddhists. Oh, now is an opportunity to sit down with the Swamis of the Ramakrishna order of Vedanta Hinduism. Let's talk to the Swamis. That's part of interfaith. What else? Oh, here come the monks of the Thai forest tradition. They are Buddhists. Let's do some intra-Buddhist interfaith. Master Hua, when we ordained, had the Theravada monks sitting up front looking at the new Mahayana preceptees, right? We did multi-yana ordinations, mixed. That was his vision, was let's heal the split in Buddhism, then go out, all right? But it's way more than that. It's that in everything that we do as Buddhists, Master Hua encouraged us to engage Western culture. So, talk to scientists, right? Go vote. As you teach your school, learn how education is done here and bring the principles of the Dharma together. As you eat, engage with the principles of ahimsa as you choose the food you're going to nourish your body with. Art, food, music, filiality, respect for elders, technology. In every part of our lives, wisdom can guide our steps as we encounter the 21st century. And in this way, he would say, make the cultivation of the Dharma your own responsibility. So what is this different than? It's different than the Arhat, who's there cutting himself off for fear that he'll be tainted by something he meets that will spoil his chance for enlightenment. Right? That's not the way Master Hua lived the Dharma. He said, if you know one part, explain one part. If you know 100 parts, explain 100 parts. But get out there and talk to people and learn from them and let compassion take us all closer to the Buddha. Right? So those are the 4 legacies. So we're saying what? We're saying establish the Sangha, laity, and monasteries. We're saying educate for lifelong learning. We're saying share the Buddha's voice with different languages in the world and engage Western culture and bridge East and West. So we translate minimum 2 languages, or sometimes 3 or more, depending on who's there, in our way places. So that's the idea, and we're talking about how to make this happen, if we can do it. We need to get going because May, when Master Hua was born, is coming around pretty soon. May 2018, we need to get going. So just to bring that up, and you'll be hearing more from us about that. Could we transfer the merit? It's on that sheet that you have. And there's, this week, a lot of places to transfer. You think about, we had what? We had 3 hurricanes roll through. Harvey, Irma, and what was the one that hit Puerto Rico? H-I-J, Jose, Hurricane Maria, right? Yeah, smashed. Puerto Rico is at the brink of illness because they have standing water and no sanitation because the water just brings everything up to the top. They're ripe for cholera, dysentery, waterborne diseases, which are kill you, you know. So there's that. There's the Las Vegas shooting that kind of fell off the radar. There's a bomb in Somalia. 358 people so far died in an instant. Then there's bombs going off in Kabul, etc. And Northern California experienced the worst fire catastrophe in history. That's in our backyard. It affected us. So lots of places. These are all, you know, human disasters and natural disasters all mixed in together. They influence each other. So when we transfer merit and practice generosity and giving and this relationship of generosity, humans resemble what we should be doing, and it somehow balances out the imbalance that leads to disaster. So this is a really wholesome activity. Please make a wish. As one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds away to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light break the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. I'm going to bring the screen down, turn the projector on, turn the lights off, and get ready to look at some photos. Jerry, what? Okay. Okay. It looks strong, huh? Okay, I'm going out to abhayagiri.org, which is the Buddhist monastery, our neighbors in Redwood Valley, who were our hosts, who were hosted by us for a week when they had to evacuate their monastery with the fires advancing. It was already 2 weeks ago. And they have a photographer whose name is Theodore, who has been documenting this experience and has some outstanding photos, which I really wanted people to know about. If you go to abhayagiri.org and do what I did, go to this menu, and there's gallery, right? So go to gallery, and then pick out the sheriffs and firefighters did not open their road, Tomkai Road, because the devastation was so intense. Here was Tomkai Road, the National Guard were turning everybody back. And Redwood Valley burned intensely. One of our carpenters, Mike, lost everything. His house burned. And on just before, this was on a Monday, the sheriffs allowed some of the monks to go back and take a look. Not everybody, but they got permission to go take a look. And so this is, you can see there are 3 monks and 2 laity. This is Ajahn Pasano, Krunadammo, and Jotipalo. Jotipalo and Debbie Stamp here were the 2 who led everybody safely out to evacuate. Ajahn Pasano was in New Hampshire at a branch monastery and came back to join them at CTDB. This Buddha didn't burn. This is Mike's place. Everything else is ash. But the Buddha survived. This is West Road, which you drive through to get to Redwood Valley. Fire trucks were still going back and forth, staging at Abhayagiri's parking lot. Here was a group of firefighters from New Mexico. Four firefighters from Los Angeles. Two firefighters whose jobs were to stay on the high ground and watch for smoke. Two men from New Mexico. Jody Paulo gave hugs to every firefighter who would stand still for it. He was so grateful. Obviously, this gentleman has Native American blood. Okay, so they got the all clear the next day, and they led everybody back. Here is the car caravan heading into Redwood Valley. Here's what they drove by. By the way, just interestingly, the word has gone out from the insurance companies to not touch the ash. They say the ashes are, number one, they're really toxic. They're telling everybody who's gone back to look at their property that if they touch anything, the insurance companies won't honor it. They say just leave everything until the inspectors come, and then don't touch the ashes. Let the cleanup crews who know what to do come, because it'll make you sick. Here's the group, and you'll recognize somebody here. That's Jin Chuan, who accompanied next to Debbie here. Caltrans fire truck. Up the steps into the Buddha Hall, and it was untouched. Everybody's couldn't be more thrilled to see that the fire didn't burn Abhayagiri. This is a really telling photo. This is how monks, the Theravada tradition, have to hold on to their robes. You know, they don't have this little hook thing, so they always lose one hand. And this is a beautiful photo of holding tight, holding on. Even though they were pushed out of their comfortable monastery by the fires, they kept their cultivation and their practices. Okay, now, what happened? Fire update. Ajahn Jotipalo recounted one experience talking with a firefighting crew from New Mexico. I asked the crew from New Mexico how it was fighting the fire. They had been on the property for 5 days. They said it was the weirdest thing, like the monastery refused to burn. They said one evening, probably the day Timothy Luke was forced to leave Mount Tabor, when he reported seeing 200-foot tall flames on the ridge, that 10 battalions with 20 men to a battalion were out on the loop trail fighting the fires coming down from the ridge. They reported the fires got down to the loop trail, but the fire wouldn't cross the trail. They said it was like the monastery refused to burn. None of them could explain it. They reported their hair standing on its end when the fire reversed itself and went back up the mountain. Everybody was kind of freaked out, as they'd never seen anything like this. I asked several other crews about their experience, and they all reported about this. How interesting that impressed these tough firefighting guys who'd never imagined such a thing. Okay, well, there were 2 lay people's homes across the road. Sandra and Dee's, they came with the monks to City of 10,000 Buddhas. Their homes burned. Here they are, getting out of the car with Debbie and the Sangha. Here are the remains of their home, right across the road. Here she is, Sandra, having to face the reality of nothing left except her Buddha image, which again refused to burn. If any photo tells the story, this is it. Here are the monks chanting, giving her support while she realizes she's only got her faith in the Dharma left. A wooden birdhouse didn't burn, the nesting material still intact. A monk trying to dodge the camera. And Agaric Orion walking through the landscape. The NBC News was up there interviewing her as she held her Buddha. This is the other woman's home. And her Buddha was discovered. Circle of friends found in the rubble, the statue. A real circle of friends chanting on her behalf. The Prius that was abandoned by the creek because it couldn't cross the creek was returned unburned. Somebody went out and pulled it back, safe from the flames, didn't lose their car. Here is Ken's Buddha. His house burned. His Buddha was unburnt. Here it is. That's the Buddha they found in Dee's ashes. Okay, now, for my money, the astonishing images are here. Exploring the monastery after the fire. And again, it's Theodore is the photographer who took all these incredible photos. This is from the top of the ridge. You can see the smoke still in the valley. This is a burning tree, still burning inside. Manzanita, madrone, it's really, really hard wood. Here the fire came up the ridge, burned over the ridge, but it didn't burn the monastery's solar panel. How does that work? The fire avoided all the structures. The water tanks got singed but didn't burn. Here is a shrine to a young boy who died as when he was part of the monastery. So they called him a deva, little boy, Todd. They put his shrine here. The burn came here and stopped. There's no reason why that wouldn't burn, but it didn't. The only damage was one bridge that needed repairing, 2 steps in it. The loop trail prevented the fire from going into the monastery, but still, I mean, thank you to the firefighters who prevented Stephen Cope's shrine from burning. The fire burned here and stopped at the shrine. Intense fire burned on the south side of Goat Creek. The Ajahn Chah shrine, made of wood, had fire on both sides, but didn't burn. That's kind of amazing. Black rock Buddharupa overlooking the massive fire break dug through the land. If I had any single picture to tell the story, this would probably be it. We lost trees along the southern boundary. Bulldozers made a fire break down the middle, but the huts didn't burn. Fire came down the ridge, stopped at Goats Creek. This is a carpenter who works with them, who is also a firefighter. He helped save the Redwood Valley Rancheria, which is the Indians' place, by fighting the fire all night long. True hero. Fire crews from Fort Bragg, looking at the property map. Bulldozers went through here, disrupting the walking trails, no problem. CAL FIRE coming down to repair the fire breaks and make the monastery even more fireproof. Looking at the fire as it is on the map on that day, still burning. Here is one of their workers who is also a firefighter in the bulldozer. Crew from Arizona, thank you. Many of them Native Americans. Now, this is really telling. Here's a bulldozer, and it's got tank treads. It's got those metal treads that will eat up a road. This road is brand new in Abhayagiri. It's expensive, and it's waterproof as long as it's not broken, right? As soon as the surface gets broken, you start over, basically, because the water will leak in. So the fire crews put down plywood to keep the road safe, so their bulldozer would go over it without harming the road. And that's, hundreds and hundreds of yards. Look at that. Talk about, with a heart. This was last Thursday, the 19th, so 2 days ago. This picture was taken 2 days ago. Restoration crew repairing the bulldozer line. Here they are. There we go. So I just wanted to share that amazing photos, and you see the power of photography to capture a moment, right? Here's that Buddha image we saw burn, now it's been honored. Restoring the land, putting it back to normal. Digging big fire breaks. They cover the line, the fire line, with brush so it won't erode. These are wise to the ways of the forest. Reopening one of our trails. Ajahn Sek, thanking him. Making new friends. The crews would get a lot more done if we stopped hugging them. Wildlife coming back. Back to normal, back to the building, because their brand new Buddha hall is not finished. And it would have been really finished, but it's not. And it started raining. As we know, that was yesterday. So, okay, I'd encourage everybody to go to abhayagiri.org, and you can get, as things go back to normal, you can get the fire update. Please, they say, please do not visit. Not yet. All right. There we go. So tomorrow is our next day and last day of the Earth Store Bodhisattva session in Chinese. So that doesn't mean you can't come and read along in English if you'd like, but the chanting is done in Chinese because the English chanting is not quite ready for prime time. But please do consider spending an hour or a day here in the monastery. And when are you going to burn the paiways, Jinfosher? 4:30? Tomorrow. Okay. Announcements? What have we got? Have you got the microphone? Oh, right. There you go. Yeah. Next Saturday, the 28th, down in Milpitas, I'm going to be speaking with the abbot of Dharma Drum Monastery from Taiwan, Guodong Fa Shi, in Chinese again. But it'll be a conversation about bringing the Buddha Dharma into the modern world. So, standard kind of topic. And he's quite an accomplished monk and speaker, and he's the one that Master Shengyan picked out to lead their community forward. So they insisted that he is not stuffy at all. He's very lively and fun. So if anybody wants to come down, there's information on the board outside about where and how. So I think it begins at 1 o'clock.
See, in terms of events, I think we're having the standard monastery events. Buddhism for the Modern Mind, I don't think it's this Monday. I think it's the following Monday, right? People are coming. So if you are interested, Monday's class is on not this coming Monday, but next week on the 30th. Then we have the regular classes Wednesday evening with Stephen Tainer, Thursday with the Insight Meditation Group, and then Friday with the Sixth Patriarch Sutra with Professor Verhoeven. And then Saturday is our regular Sutra lecture.
You want to check that? Is it this Monday?
Not this Monday.
Not last Monday.
Is this Monday?
It's
it's
every
this
other
Monday?
one.
Oh, okay. So this Monday, 23rd.
Yeah.
Doug will be teaching here, and he's been doing a kind of a continued topic from the summer retreat using Irigare and Nagarjuna Bodhisattva. So it's been a very interesting conversation looking at kind of how you can say a French feminist deconstructs the modern society structures, and also Nagarjuna Bodhisattva who deconstructs the self and you can say deconstructs everything, so we get back to our nature. So so that's been the topic for the Mondays. And actually the Guanyin session is coming up very soon at the Seven Thousand Buddhas. That's November 4th to the 11th. You can find more information at the DRBU extension website. That's drbux.org. And actually, Doug will be leading that as well, and it will still be the same topic, actually. He's going to make that kind of a theme, is really looking into kind of Irigare and Nagarjuna Bodhisattva. We had quite a few people interested, so that's why we kept it. So if people are interested, please sign up, drbux.org. Otherwise, I think that's it. Anything else? No? Oh, what? Honoring Elders Day next Saturday at CDB, which would be the 4th? The next Saturday is the 28th. Next week, you mean? Oh, next week. Okay, so the 28th. October 28th is Honoring Elders Day at the City of 10,000 Buddhas. So if you're interested, please, you can go up to Ukiah to join into that event. I'm guessing there's also going to be events in the Bay Area from our local monasteries like Gold Sage as well. But you have to check on their website for what dates those are. Oh, and tomorrow, the 22nd, October 22nd, is Gold Mountain Monastery in San Francisco's Honoring Elders Day.
Okay. So, as they say, 是道之进，非道之退，在善而从，不善而改. If it's the path, if it's the Tao, advance resolutely. If your wisdom tells you it's not the Tao, then retreat. Don't progress. Select what's good and imitate it. Select what you didn't like tonight and change inside. So, see you all next week. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo